Yeah, I like the, entrepreneurs just figure stuff out, right? Kind of like the Marines.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to be a problem solver. I mean, one of the
Yeah.
things I tell people is that as an entrepreneur, you have to work through, you're always going to have problems, and not everybody can solve them for you. You have to figure it out. You just got to do your workaround.
Welcome to the Hire Yourself podcast. If you're ready to take control of your destiny, build wealth, and live life on your own terms, this is the place for you. Each week, Pete and I talk about business, franchising, and personal growth to help make you more successful. All right, so Pete, tell me about this EMyth Revisited book, because I know you give this book to, I think, everybody you work with or everyone that invests in a franchise, right?
Yeah.
Why do you do that?
EMyth Revisited by Michael Gerber is a great book. It's one of my favorite books, and it's a book that, you know me, Nat, I love giving people resources. I like teaching. I like giving resources. So, Nat, one of the things that I do is when somebody invests in a franchise business, I give them a copy of the book, EMyth Revisited. And it's a very powerful book, and I look at it as a resource for them from that standpoint.
That was one of the first books I read about entrepreneurship many, many years ago, and it was actually super impactful. It's kind of like, also that concept too, like if, you figure out what your time is worth hourly. So say it's worth, $50 an hour, and then anything that's like less than that, try to have somebody else do it, right?
Yeah.
People I've worked with over the years will be talking about franchising and, great clips, super cuts, sport clips, all those have obviously been great successes over the years. And, say I would, for example, we're talking about that and they'll be like, well, Nat, I don't know how to cut hair. So they're kind of freaked out because like if an employee called off sick, they wouldn't be able to go, work or substitute. And I'm like, that's great. You don't, that's what we want. We don't want you to know how to do that, because then you're not even tempted to fill in for that person. Franchising is really focused on executive run businesses. So you're more, at the higher level and not in the weeds doing the hourly work.
No, I thought you were using the hair cutting example because I'm bald and, I couldn't relate to that. So thank you for pointing that out there. But really, the reason I like the book too is that it kind of talks about this idea of working on the business, not in the business, right? And
Totally.
A lot of entrepreneurs fall into that case of working in the business, to your point. And they have a great case study in the book about this wonderful lady, and she loved baking, and she had all her grandma's recipes. And she decides she's going to open up a bakery, and she hires some people, and she basically gets to the point where she starts taking over all the roles. So she literally is up at 3 a.m. baking, and then she opens up the shop. And when she gets done with the hourly, the shop being opened, she closes down, does the cleaning, goes home and does her books and gets her 3 hours of sleep and is exhausted. Right.
Holy cow.
And that's that whole idea of working in the business and not on the business. And so one of the things I tell people is that your point is that you want to leverage your time in the most efficient way possible, right? You don't want to be the person doing whatever it is. You want to be leading the business.
Yeah. That's one thing I always appreciated about franchising too. You go to corporate for training and, they really teach you, number one, they have all the systems and everything organized already. And then number two, they teach you how to use it. So you don't have to spend a lot of time figuring out, what accounting system am I going to use? Or, now I have to make a website, like all that stuff's turnkey. So you can really focus on the people side of the business, which I think that's ultimately a lot of the secret sauce of franchising is, team building and finding good people to build a team with.
No, that's true of all business, right? Is finding the right people and having the right team. I had a guy that invested in a junk removal franchise. I've got a little bit of experience in that industry. And so a month into owning it, and that I call him, I go, what are you doing? Right. And he goes, well, I'm on the junk truck. I'm learning the business. I said, I think that's awesome. Congratulations. I'm glad you're learning the business. So I called him a month later. I said, what are you doing? He goes, I'm on the truck. I'm learning the business. I said, listen, man, get off the truck. You can pay somebody $12 an hour to be on the truck. I want you to be out there setting up the strategic accounts, getting the big deals, driving the business. You can pay somebody $12 to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. I always say sales cures all. So you need to get out there and sell, right?
Yeah. I worked with this one couple. They invested in a fitness concept. He was a finance guy, decided he was going to run the fitness concepts. She was going to keep her job. And so we go out to dinner to celebrate the opening their first location, and we start talking. And the wife goes, you know what I do is I do my job 9 to 5, and then I go to the club, the fitness facility, and I clean it at night.
Oh, wow.
And I said, what are you doing? You guys want to end up divorced? Are you crazy? You could pay somebody $30 a night to clean that. You know, what are you
Right.
doing? Right. So we got to want to work on the business, not in the business.
Yeah.
But, you know, and EMyth Revisited, I mean, it kind of talks about this, that a lot of entrepreneurs fall into that case of working into the business.
Right. Yeah. You don't want to just buy yourself a glorified job. You know, life's too short for that.
Yeah. I mean, if you are the business, then if it has, you have to be the business, then it's not a business. It's really kind of a job.
Yeah.
That's that point. You know, it's funny. It talks in the book a little bit about this idea that all business owners, they have three components, right? They have an entrepreneur in them, they've got a manager, and they've got a technician in it, right? And his belief is that as a business owner, most people are about 10% entrepreneur, about 20% manager, and about 70% technician, right? And I think about you, Nat, because I know you probably would be skewed a lot higher on the entrepreneur side, right? That's your
Right.
kind of your deal. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, it's 100%. Like an entrepreneur, it's always like kind of creating something new. So it's it can be it's rewarding and all that, but I think it can be like a little bit turbulent for those around us because we're always on to the next thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so they talk a little bit about in the book that as an entrepreneur, you're always looking forward, right? And as a manager, you're always looking in the past. And a technician is living for the day. They just want to
Right.
do what they do, the one thing, and be off with it. So I
Yeah.
think that's interesting.
Well, and there's some, I think there's some positives about that too. I was talking to a gentleman that has owned a residential maid service for like the last, uh, let's call it 15 years, and he's 70 years old now. And of course, he's had that executive position and all that. But now, what he really likes to do, they have company cars, and he likes to go to the office and just kind of maintain the cars and stuff. So it's like that makes him happy, and he has good management in place, so he washes the cars or just oil changes and all that. So
I would
it's
kind of like that.
yeah, it's
I love
therapeutic
cars. So
sometimes, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
I mean, so it's a great book, and I think for people that are looking to become an entrepreneur, it's a good guide to kind of make sure that you're going into the right way, the right focus, the attention, and I think it has a like a 7-point plan of how you go forward with the business. It's a great book.
Yeah. What's some of the most innovative like things you hear people doing these days, like outside the box? Like in the old days, it may be like training dogs or like running dogs around. Like, what have you heard anything crazy?
Yeah, I heard the other day somebody was telling me about a business where they sterilize facilities.
That I'm not surprised about, right?
You know, I didn't even think about that, but
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. Is that they go in and they can sterilize, and it just as a part of a normal bit. I thought, oh, so you mean like I asked them. I said, does that mean like when a school gets contaminated with COVID-19, you go in there? And they go, no, it's on a regular basis. They go sterilize facilities, and I go, oh, wow,
Wow.
it's amazing how industries are developed.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I have a friend that owns some McDonald's, and their COVID policy or procedure is if like an employee gets COVID, is test positive for COVID, they shut the store and they sanitize the whole thing. So kind of like what you're saying, there probably is really big opportunity doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
and even think about businesses that have pivoted. Like, for example, the alcohol distillers, right? The alcohol companies, they're making hand sanitizer,
yeah.
right? If you ever thought that they would be, selling less vodka and making, and you
Hand
can't use vodka
sanitizer.
as hand sanitizer, but the idea behind it is it's crazy that things pivot like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the, entrepreneurs just figure stuff out, right? Kind of like the Marines.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to be a problem solver. I mean, one of the
Yeah.
things I tell people is that as an entrepreneur, you have to work through. You're always going to have problems, and not everybody can solve them for you. You have to figure it out. You just got to do your workaround.
Yeah.
And I love that part. I like looking at a situation and trying to figure out, okay, how do I manage this? How do we get to where we want to be? That's one of my favorite things to do.
I think that's pretty powerful too with franchises because you have like an owner network, right? So you have, however many owners, 100 owners, 1,000 owners. and they're all kind of working together to solve problems, or you get to benefit from kind of that brain trust that's out there. A lot of franchises have weekly calls or monthly calls with the owners, and so there's just a lot of brain power to innovate and solve problems, especially in this day and age.
Yeah, well, and you saw that during the pandemic, right? Is that franchisors were doing regular calls to help navigate their franchisees through it. And I always tell people, I mean, the great thing about a franchise is that you get the support of the franchisor, right? The systems, all that kind of stuff, all that support. But to your point, the network of franchisees is really valuable, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the franchises have accountability groups, right? Where they get 8 franchisees together on a regular basis. Maybe it's a call, and they talk through kind of what's working, what's not working. I think that's just awesome. We did it in the car business. They were called dealer 10 groups, where they would get together all over from different parts of the country and kind of share ideas and share their financials and all that good stuff.
Yeah. I know you're not very competitive, Pete, so
not at all.
You probably never used those dealer 10 groups to get everyone fighting for first place, did you?
Well, they didn't compete against each other. That's why they did it from different parts. So you weren't kind of in this group with your peers in your neighboring market. But the idea is that, it's a great tool. It's a great mechanism to be in a place where you can learn and get advice from other business owners.
Yeah. That's what too, like just thinking about the franchise owner group, right? It's kind of like a lot of times you have a territory, so it's kind of like a puzzle or what have you. So you're not really competing against your neighboring guys. You're more working together. It's like that rising tide raises all ships and all that.
So you've owned in-home care businesses both from a franchise standpoint as well as an independent. And so the difference between having that support and that infrastructure of all the franchisees and also then be doing it on your own. You think it would be, if you didn't have that experience before of being a franchisee in that space, being independent, do you think it would have been a lot harder?
Yeah. It's very lonely to own like basically your own independent business, because you don't really, it's like, open your books and, have a lot of dialogue with your competitors. So if I hadn't had the benefit of learning everything from the franchise originally, I think it would have been next to impossible, because I wouldn't really even know which way was up, to be honest.
Yeah absolutely. And from your standpoint, you are very much an entrepreneur, and then not as much about the technician. Like, you like to come up with the idea and then hand it off to people and let them run, right?
Exactly.
That's I can clearly see that with you.
Yeah.
I think, from my standpoint, I have a little less entrepreneur than you, just because I spent so much time in the corporate world, right? And my job was to execute manager. So, and I was certainly compensated on the past my results, right? So, there wasn't a lot of stuff, but it was interesting. Like, so when you kind of talk about innovation, when I was at Ford, it was really hard to innovate stuff, right? It just because we'd done things forever the same way. And so I was part of the group that took all the incentives that we have, like customer cash and stuff like that, the way in which we communicated them to dealers. We'd used to send them through a batch system. You put them in the computer, and then it would basically download to their computer system in the morning. Right? So we took it and we basically put all the incentives on a web page and uploaded everything to the dealer, so they instantaneously got it. And it was very cool. But the fight to get that done, because we always done it the one way from that standpoint. So that's kind of if you can have that innovative and do that, but it's a lot harder to be an entrepreneur in a corporate role. It's hard because it's so restrictive.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not necessarily being paid to think, you're just being paid to execute, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So awesome. That's good. So EMyth Revisited, great book. If you're ever thinking about investing in a business or starting a business, it's a great resource.
Yeah. All right, Pete. Well, have a great weekend.
Let's rock and roll. Thanks for listening to the Hire Yourself podcast. For more resources, check out our website at hireyourself.com. And remember to subscribe to this podcast to receive each episode. Please leave us a rating, and we'd love to hear your feedback and suggestions for topics.